All right. Hello again, class. We're doing another read out loud. This time we're going to be looking at Before Love Memory by Daisy Hernandez. Before we get started, as a warning, this is a longer one, so it's going to take us a little bit of time to get through it. But follow along with me, and you'll have the whole class period today to work on this reading. All right, here are the directions for today's reading. You are doing three things. You are highlighting any lines that stick out to you. You should also have your notebook open in front of you. If you notice any literary techniques used by the writer that you would like to use in your own writing, go ahead and jot them down in your notebook. And then the last thing, after you have finished reading or while you're reading, whatever works best for you, I would like you to draw a picture of what English and Spanish look like as Daisy Hernandez describes them. So based on the way that the author is describing English and Spanish, what does English look like? Personify English. What does Spanish look like? Personify Spanish. Okay, here we go. Once again, Before Love Memory. They come for me in the morning. My mother has dressed me in a navy blue plaid jumper and a white blouse. She has yanked my dark hair into pigtails and now makes the sign of the cross on my forehead before turning me over to a skinny lady who ushers me into the back seat of her station wagon. I join a small group of children, mostly Cuban. All of us dress alike, our dark eyes bright and vaguely nervous. The station wagon lady drops us off at the steps of a gloomy castle in Union City, New Jersey, Holy Family Catholic School. The yard is hemmed in with black iron bars, and the front doors are made of steel. Women in dress pants roam the cement grounds like fat hens with their wings clipped, their beaks pointing and gesturing. I huddle with the other children in packs of 3 and 5, like scared chicks. Miss Reynolds is the kindergarten teacher. She has glasses that make her eyes look like oversized buttons on her face. And she speaks the funny language that comes out of the television set at home when we are not watching telenovas or the noticias, which is to say that she talks like the cartoon character Mighty Mouse. It is English, a language that sounds like marbles in the mouth. It is funny to hear, but mostly because the mouse on the TV screen is flying. Sitting in the classroom, I wait for Miss Reynolds to start talking like my mother in Spanish. Surely it won't be long now. An hour passes, 2 hours, an entire day it feels, and still it is all Mighty Mouse. I am familiar with the language. I even speak a few words of it, but I've never heard so much of it all at once. It's like being forced to watch the same cartoon all day long. I don't know if this is what exactly happened on my first day of kindergarten, but it is what I remember of my first years in school. A few memories can be confirmed by research and on-site inspection. Mighty Mouse on television, the school's black iron bars. My mother verifies the bit about the station wagon lady and the ethnicity of the other children. And school photographs offer details of the uniform and my teacher's face. There are, however, missteps in memory, places where emotion has distorted people, sights, even sounds. In a school photograph, for example, my teacher is a skinny, androgynous white woman with thick glasses. But I remember her as a fat hen, a flying mouse, and kindergarten as the beginning of the end. It is true what they say. All I really need to know about life I learned in kindergarten. This is what I learned. Grab as many naked Barbies as you can before the other kids get them. Throw crayons at people when you're angry. The first one to reach the front of the line wins. Raise your hand to go to the bathroom. White people like it when you ask for permission. I learned, too, that if white people do not get rid of you, it is because they intend to get all of you. They will only keep you if they can have your mouth, your dreams, your intentions. In the military, they call this a winning hearts and minds campaign. In kindergarten, they call it ESL, English as a second language. A teacher comes for us one day, just two of us, me and my friend, a thin, pixie faced girl. I don't know why we're being taken from class, but in the hallway, as we find ourselves farther from our classroom, my friend starts crying. And hers are not baby tears, they are full blast, Llorona wailing. She roots herself to the ground and refuses to take one more step. The teacher begins dragging her by the arm, but the harder the woman pulls, the more my friend yells and twists in the darkened hallway, and for a moment, it looks as if her left arm is threatening to rip from her body, as if at the age of 5, she will choose self-mutilation over what is to come at the hands of white women. As for myself, I don't fight, I follow. In an empty classroom, the white woman pulls out a deck of cards with pictures and words. She spreads the cards one by one, heavy pieces of paper set down on a broad wood table. The sun pouring through the window coats us in yellow liquid. But I can decipher the cards. Each one holds a picture and a word: dog, cat, house. I am to repeat each word after the teacher. In Spanish, we also have cartas. My uncle uses cards to talk with the spirit world. The cards tell us about jobs that are about to arrive, ancestors who are unhappy, a case pending with immigration. The cards are paper doors only special people can open. I look at the white woman's cards and listen to her bold English words: dog, cat, house. And there is all the evidence of what is to come in my life. I am not to go the way of the two people I long for in the thick terror of the night. The first man I love and the first woman I adore, my father and my mother with their Spanish words, are not in these cards. The road before me is English, and the next part too awful to ask out loud or even silently. What is so wrong with my parents that I am not to mimic their hands, their needs, not even their words? Before kindergarten, all I really know of the world is the uneven sidewalks of Union City, New Jersey. The shop with its fat chickens hollering at us and nipping at the wire cages. The sharp smell of chicken blood when the little beasts are killed in back and brought in plastic white bags to my mother. The fabric store with its bins carrying spools of thread like a cubana, holding up the ends of her apron. The buses that shake up and down Bergen Line Avenue. The stores jammed with cigars and wrinkled men and women folding the ends of the thick brown. Our national language is Spanish, and there are many kinds. Mostly it is the Cuban Spanish of my father and his friends, a language that sounds like firecrackers on July 4th, so fast and high above your head. But there is also the Puerto, Puerto Rican Spanish of Colin, the man with the mustache who my auntie has married. It is a Spanish that mimics popcorn when it first begins popping, the way it jumps and bounces in a steady rhythm. And then there's Colombian Spanish. My mother's language does not bounce or jump. It believes in staying close to the earth, to clay. It is the murmur of water slipping over ancient stones. It is the Spanish of my aunties, las tias, who come and go between Jersey and Colombia. There's also English. It is the language of minorities. You hear it every now and then, mostly from Mighty Mouse on television or the older kids on the block. English is a game of marbles, the way the words shoot after each other, bumping and plodding and leaving tracks on the ground. It is an okay game, English that is, but everything real happens in Spanish. The way women admire each other's hair, how they yell at you to not play in the street, how they drag you into the house when the sky turns a velvet black, promising, ya, mañana sales otra vez. Terrible things happen in Spanish too. My father and his friends get drunk, slur their words, and turn into screeching birds. Rage is a terrible habit in any language, I suppose. But on our streets, in our homes, in Spanish, it takes on awful proportions. And the mothers complain to each other in shorthand. ¿Qué se va a hacer? The reply is always the same. Así son los hombres. Women are a different matter. Union City is filled with virgins. The Cubans worship La Caridad, a brown-faced mother of Jesus donned with chloral, coral, and gold. The Dominicans pray to La Alta Gracia, and the Colombians cherish the Virgin of Chiquinquira. The virgins, like us, are a matter of multiplicity. There is never one of anything in this world. There are many virgins, many forms of Spanish, many ways of going about a life. Dollars, though, are constant. In the kitchen, my mother folds aluminum foil over dollar bills and packs them into an envelope. The dollars are to be mailed with letters to her mother in Colombia. We send dollars because of the wars. It is 1980 and there are two wars. The one in Colombia is about land and poor people. The Cold War has something to do with Russia, Berlin, and Central America, but it's not clear what that war is about, except it means my mother and I cannot travel to Cuba. It isn't safe, my father says between puffs of his soft brown cigar. In the kitchen, my mother turns on the television for the noticias. The stories are from Latin America. Women with missing teeth cry into microphones. Men with brown faces and almond-shaped eyes scream. Los niños carry younger children. Sometimes it is only the image of men's feet in their shoes and the rest of their bodies covered by white sheets. The women wail behind the reporter, who talks about the number of dead and those left behind. Los pobres, my mother whispers, before turning her eyes and her pregnant belly away from the television screen. But I don't look away. I want to see what it is all about, because my mother comes from that place in the television set, and so does my father. Those places where the floors are the thick brown of the earth and men's bodies disappear, save for their shoes. I think everyone comes from those places. The rest of us are born in Jersey. We do travel, though. We visit Bogota, Boyaca, Queens, Manhattan, Miami, and Hialeah, so that at the age of 5, I feel these places are all part of the same country. Everyone lives within its borders, speaks Spanish, and eats a lot of fried pork. I come home from kindergarten with a report card bearing the letters U and I. According to Miss Reynolds, I am guilty of unsatisfactory progress and improvement needed in the areas of respecting authority, being courteous, accepting responsibility, beginning work promptly, getting profitably busy, working up to my ability, doing homework, oral expression of ideas, reading readiness, number work, and yes, even singing. 9 months later, at the end of kindergarten, every line of my report card is filled with the slanted curves of the letter S. The letter leaning into the page and the future. Satisfactory. The only category that eludes me is the oral expression of ideas. When it comes to my ability to speak English, Miss Reynolds has written a tilting but nevertheless insistent I. Improvement needed. My mother searches for the only English words she knows on the report card, parent signature, and there, in her best penmanship learned in Colombia, she signs her name, Alicia Hernández. We are proud of her signature. The poverty in Latin America means that many people do not know how to sign their names, let alone read or write. Penning your name is a sign of progress, no matter what you are signing. In 1980, the year I am sent to kindergarten, Ronald Reagan is elected president and John Lennon is shot. It is the beginning of the end of a good many things. My mother makes recordings on cassette tapes to ship to her sisters and mother back home. She documents local gossip, my father's business ventures, and me at the age of 4 recounting the story of Little Red Riding Hood in Spanish. She insists I say something in English, anything, but I am 4. All I know are a few numbers. She says that's fine. I begin. 1, 2, 3, 4. I pause, turn to my mother. Y después que va? Her voice, an accented English, replies, 5. And I repeat the word. She says, 6. And I repeat after her. And we continue like that, my voice dancing after hers until we reach the number 20. Numbers are important in our lives. 2 is the number of black garbage bags filled with fabric that a man brings to our apartment every few days. Dozens are the number of women's pants my mother can produce on her sewing machine in the basement. 100 is the number of dollars she is paid when the man comes for the bags at the end of the week. Numbers are why my mother came to New Jersey, why she spent nights crying, wishing she could go back to her mother, to Colombia. The author Minal Harjarwala writes, perhaps only we of the next generation, raised among strangers, eating the fruit of our parents' wrists, can taste the true proportions of bitter to sweet. By the end of kindergarten, my mouth is full of fruit, and as each year arrives, I grow fatter, stuffing myself with new English words. I memorize nursery rhymes and numbers, and on a typical evening during elementary school, I sit on my bed with vocabulary books, committing to memory words, sounds, and sentence structures, while in the kitchen, my mother hollers, Llegó Walter. Walter Mercado is on television every weekday night during the evening news. He has blonde hair that has been set with hairspray into the 1980s look of being eternally windswept. His face is covered by thick layers of foundation. His eyes are ringed by heavy black liner, and his lips are coated with deep coral lipstick. Walter sports elegant suits, and on his shoulders, elaborate capes studded with rhinestones, diamonds, and emeralds. After the newscaster tells us about murders and the upcoming weather, Walter looks directly into the camera, into our eyes, lifts his palm, and quickly and authoritatively proclaims our daily horoscope. Walter Mercado is normal. White women are a different story. I sit in elementary school and learn that white teachers shop at a place called Macy's, and they go to Florida for winter holidays, though they have no cousins there. These women have aunties who do not live with them, and they are not like some of the white kids in my class whose grandmothers speak Italian. The teachers are real white. They have no history, no songs, no past, but they do have power. They have the sharpness of chalk, the sting of chemical cleaners for the blackboards, the clean earth smell of sharpened lead pencils. The teachers have the respect of my parents. By virtue of their English and the light color of their faces, these teachers determine the words that creep into my dreams at night. I envy them. I want what they have. I want my words to matter. My mother's sisters come and go over the years, but finally they arrive one by one to stay. No more back and forth. Their mother is dead. Their father, too. They have no children and no husbands in Colombia. They are free to be here. Tia Dora, Tia Rosa, La Tia Chuchi. In Colombia, they were school teachers. Here, Tia Dora cleans after a white woman down the shore, and Tia Rosa cleans after a white woman in the city. La Tia Chuchi sews in factories. When they are home, they work on me and my Spanish. I refer to the carpet as la carpeta, and Tia Dora shakes her head. She lifts her thin, fairy-like hands. Se dice alfombra, she says, and then slowly pronounces the word for me. Alfombra. Carpeta is the Spanish word for folder. My mother tells me that my new friend, Gerlen, has called. When I reply, la voy a, la voy a llamar, la voy a llamar patras, Tia Maria de Jesus, better known as La Tia Chuchi, rolls her eyes and puckers her red lips. In Spanish, she lectures, "You never say I am going to call you back. Eso es del inglés." She pauses, looks me in the eye. The verb she declares is volver. Voy a volver la llamanda. If Tia Rosa is there, she comes to my defense, wrapping me up in her arms, the top of my head smashing into her large bosom. "Leave the girl alone," she says to her sisters, making the crooning sounds of a large, elegant bird. For a moment, I believe this auntie will call a ceasefire. But no, Tia Rosa thinks the war is over. "Stop bothering the girl. She's Americana." She pats the top of my head hard, as if I were mentally disabled. My mother is different. She believes in ceasefires, neutral zones, even treaties. Together, we stick the Spanish el or la before English nouns, producing words like el vacuum, el color purple, la teacher. We say abra la window, papi está en el basement, y ya pagamos el mortgage. This is not easy. It takes time, negotiation, persistence. In the morning, late for school, I call for my mother, alarmed. I can't find mi folder. ¿Tu qué? El folder, I answer, panicked. ¿Dónde pongo mis papeles pa la escuela, mami? Ah, el folder, she says, quietly repeating the English word to herself. I begin resenting Spanish. At first, it happens in small ways. I realize I can't tell my mother about the pilgrims and Indians because I don't know the Spanish word for pilgrims. I can't talk about my essay on school safety because I don't know the Spanish word for safety. To share with my family about my life in English means I have to give a short definition for each word that is not already a part of our lives. I try sometimes, but most of the time I grow weary and finally sigh and mutter, "Olvídate," forget it. This is how Spanish starts annoying me. I suppose it's what happens when you're young and frustrated, but you can't be angry at the white teachers because that would get you nowhere. And you can't be too upset with your parents because they want what they think is best for you. Spanish is defenseless, so I start resenting her, then hating her. She's like an auntie who talks louder than everyone else, who wears perfume that squeezes your nostrils. I want her to stop embarrassing me. I want her to go away. That's how the blame arrives. I blame Spanish for the fact that I don't know more words in English. I blame her for how badly I feel when the white teachers look at me with a little pity in their eyes. I blame Spanish for the hours my mother has to work at the factory. If only I knew English, my mother starts. And then her voice trails because really none of us, not she, not even Latia Chuchi, who knows everything about everyone, knows what would happen if only my mother knew English. I am the one who's supposed to find out. But to make that leap, to be the first in a family to leave for another language, hurts. It's not a broken arm kind of hurt. It's not abrupt like that. It's gradual. It is like an internal parasite, a crawling bug in your stomach that no one else can see, but that gives you a fever and makes you nauseous. Because I have to leave Spanish, I have to hate it. That makes the departure bearable. And so I never learned to read or write in Spanish. I never learned more than the words my family and I need to share over the course of a day. Pásame la, la toalla, la comida ya está, and the words spoken on the nightly news, the telenovas, Radio Wado, and Sabado Gigante, which all combined leave me with a peculiar vocabulary of words in Spanish about immigration law, romantic fantasy, and celebrity gossip. As I become more immersed in English, I also start to distance myself from my family through unconscious gestures. I walk around the house with headphones on my ears and a book in hand. I speak only in English to my little sisters. I eat my arroz y frijoles while watching the TV sitcoms Different Strokes and Facts of Life, the two shows centered on children who don't have real parents and are being raised by white people. Makes sense to me. I begin to convince myself that I am like my white teachers. I have no history, no past, no culture. Still, my father worries that I might become like him. Sitting in the kitchen, slightly drunk, mostly sober, he grabs my arm. I am 9 at the time, and he has my report card in his hand with the letter F in social studies. You have to study, he says, his brown eyes dull and sad. You don't want to end up like your mother and me, working in factories, not getting paid on time. You don't want this life. I nod my head fiercely and agree to do my best to learn as much as I can of this country's history, geography, and politics. But my father's words haunt me. You do not want this life, my life. And yet I do. Not the factories, of course, nor the sneer of the white lady at the fabric store who thinks we should speak English, but I want the Spanish and the fat cigars and Walter Mercado on television every night to value what we have. However, is to go against my father's wishes. Years later, a writer, herself Lebanese American, smiles knowingly, sadly. You betray your parents if you don't become like them, she tells me, and you betray them if you do become like them. In 4th grade, a teacher places me in an English as a second language class. I memorize more words, rolling the marbles in my mouth, spitting them out on tests and at English-only friends. I get a card at the town library and start checking out books by the dozens. Without any intention, I start loving English. I come to know the way the words hit each other on the page and in the mouth. I begin hearing rhythms and take to reciting lines from Romeo and Juliet. English begins to feel the way marbles look when scattered across the schoolyard like a dirt road with multiple detours. This affection for English happens the way some women talk about their marriages. You do it at the beginning because it's practical, because you need the green card, because all the jobs are here. But then the viejo grows on you. You come to know the way he likes his cafe, or how he snores when he's having a bad dream. That is how it is for me with English. The affection comes later and settles in. My mother tells me to not drown myself in a cup of water. She says this often, except in Spanish, it's no te ahogues en un vaso de agua. It's probably best translated as don't sweat the small stuff. But because I am learning English from British novels and hours spent diagramming sentences, I don't know American idioms. I don't know how other children are told to not worry about their algebra homework. I only know that according to my mother, it is something over which I should not drown myself. When I tell my little sister that I found myself caught up in Friends drama, she shakes her head and says, "No tienes velas en ese entierro," which literally means you do not have candles at that funeral. If you do not have candles at a funeral, it is because the dead person does not belong to you. Everyone in Ramirque, Colombia, knows that the dead need 4 candles to light their way to the other side, and that this is the work of the dead person's family, to bring those 4 candles. If you are not family, then you should mind your own business and not add your candles to someone else's dead. Quietly, over the years, I create literal translations in English for everything my family says in Spanish. Echate la, ben, echate la bendición. Throw yourselves into the blessings. Dios le da, Dios de la, Dios le da carne al que no tiene muelas. God gives meat to those who have no teeth. Me ronca el mango. The mango does something terrible to you. At home, I learned the words and dichos belong to a specific time and place, but they need not be casualties of colonization, political exile, or poverty. The mango can follow you anywhere, even to New Jersey. When I tell my father that I'm going to be a writer, he whistles and declares, "Ahora sí que está tostada." Literally, this means I am toasted. It's the way Cubans say, "You've gone crazy." White women dream for you. In high school, my English teacher, Miss Spielvogel, fastens her large blue eyes on me. "If you go to Europe, go to Scotland," she says. Why? It's magical. Everyone wants to go to England, but go to Scotland. I nod my head as if my family sits around watching Sabado Gigante and debating vacations to Europe. But in a way, Miss Spielvogel gives me the idea. Maybe I could go to Europe someday. Maybe I could even leave New Jersey. My father doesn't know how tostada I am becoming by being in school all day, year after year, with white teachers and white students. Or maybe he does. In high school, I tape a picture of an electric typewriter to the refrigerator, and he buys it for me. The exact model, an IBM. He grins, watching me type my paper on Oscar Wilde, on the playwright's time in prison for being gay. And this line from a poem of his that I don't understand, but somehow makes sense to me. Each man kills the thing he loves. My father observes me for a few seconds, then retreats to the kitchen for a can of Budweiser. I entered the book publishing industry after college in 1998. I open mail for book editors, write rejection letters, and proofread flap copy. I spend day after day immersed in the world of books and ideas. At the end of every 2 weeks, I am paid on time. My mother beams. "And they pay vacaciones?" she asks. "And sick time too?" Yes, and yes. She is happy for me. And I am expecting to feel happy too. This job, after all, isn't just a job. It's the whole point of having learned English and gone to college. This job is the reason we had a civil rights movement and a women's movement. and why my parents migrated here, so that people like me could work in places like this. It is a given that at any moment now, I will feel a gush of joy and accomplishment that will be at once personal and highly communal. I don't know how this happiness is going to feel exactly, but I imagine it will be like when Ed McMahon shows up at people's houses with a billboard-sized check from American Family Publishing, and the white woman or the black woman starts screaming and crying and hitting her husband on the shoulder. I expect it to feel that good. Instead, I find myself one day in a conference room listening to a presentation about upcoming books. It's late in the afternoon already, and I take notes on what will make one book sell better than similar ones already on the market. Since I'm junior staff, I'm not at the big table. I'm sitting by the window, and soon the room begins to feel too warm. The sunlight is filtering in through the blinds like a dull yellow liquid, making me squint. I close my eyes for a second, and when I open them, the whole scene before me has shifted, has come into a different focus. The white people look whiter than before. Their English sounds sharper. I feel dark and small and confused. My happiness, it seems, is not going to come from this place. This is the point in the story where you try to make things right, where you think you can still be the hero, where you believe, however naively, that the solution is to fix the past. I register for a Spanish class at the Instituto de Cervantes in Manhattan. There are about 6 students in a course designed for people who grew up speaking Spanish but didn't formally study it. The teacher is a tall Espanola with thin legs and an interest in bilingual education. She gives us a topic and has us talk freely for 20 minutes. We begin chatting and debating in Spanish as if we were in our mother's kitchens. The plátanos frying on the stove, primer impacto on the television. Finally, the teacher interrupts us. "That was good," she says kindly. I almost believe her until she writes on the board all the Spanglish words we use and a string of verbs we didn't conjugate properly. Further, she has phrases that we have taken from English and translated directly into Spanish. Our syntax is English. Our Spanish words are those of a 5-year-old. The pop quiz pushes it even further. She gives us a paragraph in Spanish. Make any corrections you see necessary. I start reading, my blue pen ready, but I don't even pause when I get to that line that someone's that until I but I don't even pause when I get to the line that someone's going to parquear el carro. Of course, they're parqueando. How else would you say you're parking a car? Estacionar. The teacher smiles delighted, fully aware that she is making an impression on us. Meanwhile, we glance at each other nervously and try saying the new word out loud. We're going to estacionar la car. It sounds awkward. It makes me think of a train station. I begin to realize that all the words I hear in Spanish have primos in English. I don't hear either language without a reference to the other. The question is ancient. How does it feel to live in 2 languages? Some academics claim that people like me, bilinguals, have a private self and a public self, the self at home and the one at school. Or we are described in news stories and book reviews as people who have a foot in 2 worlds. The persistent image, the persistent image is of being split in two. But being bilingual doesn't feel that way to me. It is more like standing in a room with an open door and an open window. The room and the window are only frames, syntax, grammar, that sort of thing. The words, though, be they English or Spanish, they hop in through the window and prance through the door, laughing and gossiping and admiring each other's hair because they don't care how they get into the room. They know when they're invited, when they are expected, and most especially when they are missed. If anything is split in two, it's the world outside this room. I begin reading in Spanish for the first time, champú, ardilla, toalla, because Spanish has been only an oral language for me. It's a peculiar sensation to read it now. It's like meeting an auntie at JFK who just arrived from Colombia. She hasn't seen you since you were a toddler, but she hugs you as if the two of you were intimate, de confianza or de confianza, and you are. You are strangers who have a shared history. People say you look alike. Tienen la misma cara. The tia stares at you, smiling, pinching your cheeks like you once really did know each other. That's how it feels to read Spanish now. It is to be in the embrace of someone who loves you and who is also something of a stranger. It begins to occur to me that what I am searching for is a way back towards a time in my life when I did not resent Spanish, when I didn't think my words were wrong, and that by extension, I was wrong and that my family was wrong. Before language, there is love. Before love, memory. I am 4 years old when we open the kitchen stove so that the apartment warms up, and we are, my parents and I, snuggled in the living room. The cold air lies on my cheek like dry kisses from an auntie. And there's the smell of gas somewhere, but it's far off. And in the dark, there's the red glow of the stove's insides. And I just know that if I close my eyes, the room is warm then. My mother holds me, telling me stories about children in Colombia. And the kids there, they go hungry at night. Not just cold like us because it's winter and the pipes have messed up again. In the morning, Poppy's friend will come and fix it. And my father will drink Budweiser and get angry about the money he has to spend for heat. But it's okay for right now. We are not in Colombia. We are not in Cuba. We are under the blankets in New Jersey, and we are safe. And I am writing it all in my head, memorizing every word my mother whispers in my ear. I am writing the weight of Poppy when he gets into the sofa bed next to my mother and the mattress sags to the floor. Silently, I am writing about the roaches. Please, God, don't let them get me. I hate them so much. Don't let them get me. Not tonight. Tonight, the living room is warm. I am loved, deeply loved, and we are not in Colombia. We are safe. 20 years after kindergarten, I returned to Holy Family Catholic School. The building is not as gray or as large as I remember it, but the fear is still there in my throat as I march up the school door. I try to shake it off and focus. I'm a student journalist reporting on the growing Mexican community in Union City. I need to act professional. At the front door, a brown woman peers down at me. It is La Virgen de Guadalupe, the brown-faced Virgin Mary worshipped by Mexicans. The school has been closed. It is now El Centro de Guadalupe, and an image of the brown virgin is taped on the door. Her hands, como siempre, our class in prayer. The place where I begin to learn English, to become white like my teachers, has itself gone brown in Spanish. I know this has to do with patterns of migration, of global politics, of colonization and white flight, but for a moment, a very brief one, I feel that I am 5 years old again, and the world is not made of words on cards or marbles. In my mouth, there is no one of anything. There are many languages, many kinds of Spanish and of English, of brown women and of borders that do not shift beneath our feet, but simply grow with every step we take. Thanks for listening. Sorry for my bad Spanish, but thanks again.